Wednesday, July 15th. Welcome back to SamCentre. I am your host, Sam, and as always, it is CFL Wednesday, but there is so much to discuss in the world of sports. Major League Baseball has concluded their All-Star break, with the American League defeating the National League by a score of 4-0. And if you're looking at All-Star games as far as they're ranked across Major League sports, baseball has the best one, right? It's an actual baseball game. You can't really not try in baseball. The pitchers are still throwing the same. The hitters are still looking to do damage. And it's best on best. It's what you want to see. 4-0 for the American League. Now it doesn't matter necessarily who wins the game. In previous years, the winner of the All-Star game actually determined which team hosted the World Series. And so that is a bit of a change. Now they just go off of which team had the better regular season record, which is probably the way it should be. Jordan Walker defeating Kyle Schwarber in the home run derby in a dramatic comeback. You know, the new format of the home run derby, switching back essentially to the old format where it's just based off of number of swings instead of this timed amount that you have where all of these guys were burning themselves out into the later rounds because they had certain amount of time swinging a whole bunch, trying to swing obviously for the fences. Whereas now you can take your time a little bit, pace out your swings. It led to excitement. Jordan Walker taking it home in dramatic fashion, hitting home runs on his last 6 swings in order to come back and win that. We're going to talk World Cup, 2 games remaining, 1 semifinal game today, July 15th, as you're watching this video. And then obviously the finals, we're going to talk about that. And then a new segment. We're going to break down college football, but we have so much more to talk about when we get there. I've yapped enough. Let's run the intro.
Hey everyone, Milt Stiegel here. Make sure you check out SamCentre. He's doing some of the best sports analysts out there, baby. Check him out.
So just a quick hitter section talking about the World Cup. It was kind of really anticlimactic to see France take on Spain, Spain being able to defeat the France team by a score of 2-0, and the stars for France were really completely shut down. Kylian Mbappe did not have a single shot on target. Obviously, no shots on target for France in the entire first half of that game, and that's not what you're expecting at all. For the entirety of the tournament, and to all the games leading up to it, they looked like they were the clear-cut favorites to win it all. They were the betting line favorites. Kylian Mbappe was the clear-cut favorite to win the Golden Boot. It was obviously between him and a couple players who we'll talk about in the next semifinal game. But it's kind of super anticlimactic way to end your tournament now, right? You didn't go out even with a competitive game against Spain. You really went out there, and the game could have been 3-0 if not for the way that soccer does their offsides. I hope that the rule change comes into effect that they're talking about, where they're going to change it for offside, where there needs to be a little bit of daylight between the player and the defender, because how it is currently is 2 guys can be completely lined up equally, and if one guy's arm is sticking out this much, they'll cut it off on video assisted replay, and they'll say he's offside because his arm is sticking out this much. To all of us watching, it's really dumb. Obviously, thankfully, it didn't affect the outcome of this game. Spain, they would have gone up 3-0 instead of just winning the game 2-0, which ended up being the final, and they will take on the winner between Argentina and England. This game is going to be massive for soccer fans all around the world. Argentina having potentially the absolute fandom of the president of FIFA. There's videos of him celebrating heavily and even saying in interviews that he wants Argentina to be able to move on. Translations are iffy if he actually said that, but regardless, there's videos of him celebrating Argentina wins. It's better for the sport, I think, if either one of these teams is able to go, but if Messi's able to make it and have his last World Cup game now be in the finals, have a chance to win it all and go out on top, for England, it would mean everything for that nation to be able to win it. You don't have the France-England rivalry anymore. England versus Spain is still a rivalry there. You would have 2 Spanish nations if it's Spain and Argentina. That would be huge. And you would have Yamal, whose goal got disallowed on the offside. But being 18 years old, He had a really good game, and if he could go out there and kind of complete the cycle that a lot of other players before him were able to do and win a World Cup at the age of 18, he sets himself up to be a mega star in the future. And obviously, he'll have to go through either an English squad who seems like they're ready to win it all. They seem like the better team on paper. They've played well the entire tournament. They were able to go in there into altitude in Mexico City and still beat Mexico. They were able to have a pretty tough path here. Whereas Argentina has had to have some big comebacks against some teams that aren't entirely highly rated, against the Cap Verde, and against teams like that where you're looking and saying, even in that Egypt game, there was times where they potentially could have lost if not for some, let's say FIFA magic, whatever's in the air. Either way, it's going to be good for the sport. But let's say Argentina, give me the GOAT against the 18-year-old kid in Yamal. You have the guy in his first World Cup against the guy in his last, the passing of the torch. It would be cool to see. No matter what, tune in. And then there's just one more game remaining after this semifinal game. So now, before we hop into our next college football preview section, I want to talk a little bit about what the plans will be. Let's jump into it. Quick channel announcement here on SamCentre. We will be covering the college football season all year long, and we have the roadmap beside us leading up to week 0. First things first, we're going to talk the Mountain West and the American conferences. We're going to move on the following week, talk the Pac-12 and the 2 teams that remain independent. The following week, the ACC, the Big 12, Big 10, finishing up with the SEC, and then obviously the week 0 matchups. You need to tune into SamCentre every single week. Let's run the segment. We're going to talk college football. You saw the channel announcement. Leading up to the very first week of games, we are going to discuss a lot of the major conferences, some of the big teams, so that when we start to talk college football every single week, you know what we're talking about at least a little bit. It's a league and a sport that I think is really exciting. Usually the games are high scoring, and there's a lot of different elements compared to the pro game, because you're talking about in some areas, guys who are 18, 19 years old, just fresh out of high school or maybe a year or 2 removed from playing in high school stadiums, now going into places like Texas or Ohio State, where there's upwards of 100,000 people screaming, yelling at them, going crazy, lights flashing. There's a lot of pressures and different things that come into play. Obviously, there's the academic side. Now, college athletes are able to get paid for their likeness, get paid for different appearances. They're able to sell merchandise, where in the past, that was a big no-go. Reggie Bush being the biggest story ever, where his Heisman Trophy was literally taken away from him because he got caught selling signed jerseys while he's in college. He's the biggest star. The NCAA was making hundreds of millions of dollars off of this man, and he sells a few signed jerseys to fans, and they take away his Heisman and strip him from the College Football Hall of Fame. I think a lot of that is getting rectified now that guys are getting paid. The system still needs a lot of work. And then when we talk the conferences, so we're going to talk the American and the Mountain West in a little bit of detail. These conferences end up being where guys can kind of show themselves as top Division I athletes. No disrespect to any of the teams here, but oftentimes they're not able to compete with some of the conferences like the SEC, like the Big 10, the Big 12, where the schools get the highest level of recruits. In this conference, you'll see teams like Tulane, like UTSA, Memphis, USF. These teams are good, and oftentimes they can make the top 25. Just last year, the American Conference had 3 teams in the top 25. Tulane was one of the teams who made the college football playoffs. Obviously, in their game, they weren't extremely competitive against Ole Miss, but there's no disrespect to the team able to make it that far. And when that happens, you see a lot of coaching changes. Conferences like this become a hotbed of coaches moving on, getting other opportunities because they're able to show they can recruit well, they can scheme well, and they can win games with less resources than the big school. So looking at the preview for the American this year, you're going to see a lot of movement. Memphis is a team to potentially watch as they were able to snag Marshall's head coach from last year. And what you'll see when that happens is oftentimes a lot of his team will follow him. So the Marshall team that played pretty well last year now is going to be there with Memphis, and the best of that team is going to compete with the best of the recruits that they had last year in a season that was already fairly strong for them at certain points. The University of North Texas, they're going to be hurting a little bit as they lost some of their recruits along the way when they followed their head coach to a different program. The same thing happens with a lot of other places. Navy is a team to watch for. They had the best quarterback in school history retire and age out of college football. So for them being competitive every single season, Navy and Army just play a style of football that's different. And I think that's why college football is really, really cool compared to the pro game, compared to the CFL. Because if you watch the NFL or if you watch the CFL, teams are obviously better than other teams and they have their distinct style. But for the most part, you watch the Indianapolis Colts play or you watch a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars play, it's essentially the same game, right? The offenses look the same, minor differences. But a team like Navy or a team like Army running these triple option pass plays, I'll try to include a little bit of footage if I can find some. You'll see the difference, right? Heavy run style, not a lot of passing. And that's what makes these games so fun. Because any given week, a team like Memphis, a team like Tulane, like South Florida, they might have the bigger recruits and they might have the better pro style offense, the better pro style draft picks. But a guy like Horvath and a team like Navy, a team like Army can go out there and beat anyone on any given week because the styles are going to make a difference. They can wear you down, they can run the ball constantly, get creative in their motion on offense. I think, in my opinion, the team that to watch for in this conference is going to be Memphis. I think the other team is UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio. They have maybe the best quarterback in the conference. They have the son of Josh McGowan, a guy who played a lot of years in the NFL. He decided to come back to UTSA and build something there. So I believe it will be between those two teams for the winner of the American. I'm not entirely sure that the American Conference will get a team in the college football playoffs this year, just simply because of how Tulane appeared last year. No hate to them, but we're going to move on. Mountain West Conference. This conference saw a ton of turnover. For many, many years, the Mountain West was literally Boise State and then whoever else could remain competitive. There was a few pretty good teams every single year. If you look back in the past, obviously Boise State had Ashton Genty and they were able to make the college football playoffs 2 years ago. Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Utah State have all moved over to form the new and improved Pac 12. We're going to talk Pac 12 in next week's show, and we have a special announcement surrounding that conference, so you'll want to tune in. But that means that the Mountain West is a little bit different now. UTEP, Northern Illinois, and now North Dakota State. The reason North Dakota State is going to sound familiar is that was the team who essentially completely dominated FBS at every single year. They were the star there, and now they're looking to make the jump to Division 1 to FCS football. And they had played FCS teams before. The major difference being, again, it's still all Division 1, but the difference between FCS and FBS is usually the level of talent that you get. All of the best recruits in the world are going to go to the FCS. So for North Dakota State, we need to see if they can remain competitive over a full season against these teams. I think they are probably going to finish around 5th in the Mountain West. The teams that you should look out for. A name that you'll recognize in Dan Mullins, a former head coach of Florida and other big college programs. He is the head of UNLV, University of Northern Las Vegas. He's returning back for another season. They hit the transfer portal really hard. They got the former quarterback named Alan Arnold, who is a really good player, a guy who is probably going to be in contention for the best quarterback in this conference. New Mexico is looking to build off of the success they had last season. They were top 25 adjacent for most of the year. And so I think New Mexico, UNLV, they are probably going to be the two teams that will end up battling for the championship at the end of the year. But a couple notes. I think this could potentially be a year for the Rainbow Warriors in Hawaii, where they have a chance to change the perspective and change the way that everyone looks at that program. They have a guy, a homegrown talent over there and at quarterback who is in contention for the best quarterback in the conference now. The guy at UNLV and the guy at Hawaii. North Dakota State might take a bit of a hit just because so many guys were able to move on and get drafted or move on to the pro level from that side. So, a lot of reasons to tune into the Mountain West. It's new. There's not a lot of teams remaining. Obviously, we just talked about all of the state teams that left. Boise State being the cream of the crop now leaves the door open for a new champion in the Mountain West. Official prediction for this conference is New Mexico winning, defeating UNLV in the championship game, but I cannot wait to break it down every single week. Let's wrap up the show by talking CFL Wednesday, power rankings, and the Week 7 slate of games. First things first, credit where credit is due. I need each and every one of you to go to the comments right now and say thank you to Cam, friend and channel subscriber. He designed the new and improved power ranking graphics for us, and he was able to really get that to us in a timely fashion. So everyone say thank you, Cam. Let's talk Week 7. The Edmonton Elks will play host to the BC Lions in a game that's going to directly affect where these teams sit in the power rankings. We talk about Edmonton consistently every week, showing up with Justin Rankin, with Cody Fajardo, and with a defense now that's capable of making plays, interceptions, and actually getting to the quarterback. In previous years, this was really a weakness for the Elks, and they addressed that in the offseason. They've worked hard to address that, and they're getting back some guys healthy throughout the season, as the Lions have been. This has been the key for the Lions. The bounce back is starting to happen. 1-4 is going to look a lot different than 2-3 in the West right now. With Winnipeg and Calgary, Edmonton and Saskatchewan, all of those teams continuing to roll, BC needs to win this game. They need to show that they're going to remain competitive, and if they're able to take back-to-back wins off of the Edmonton Elks, I think that's a statement being made in the West that they're back to being competitors. Nathan Rourke needs to show why he was the off-season MVP candidate. Obviously, it's a long season in the CFL, so you're most definitely not out of things, but the power rankings could switch up quite differently based off of how that game goes. My official prediction, I think you need to look that the Edmonton Elks will win a close one and get their game back. But if BC is back to where they were at, where everyone thought they were going to be at preseason and where they finished the season last year, BC is going to win this game and they're going to upset the Edmonton Elks. The official prediction, though, 33-30 with the last second touchdown pass from Cody Fajardo to Austin Mack. The Edmonton Elks defending home field, winning the game and remaining number 1 in the power rankings. The Montreal Alouettes will be on the road to take on the Calgary Stampeders, a game that's a rematch directly of last week when Montreal was able to defeat Calgary 37-30 in Montreal. Calgary is going to be looking to get their win back, and for Davis Alexander and the Alouettes, this is a big win in your season to get. Obviously, you're in firm control of the East, so for Calgary, they might be treating this a little bit more like a playoff game than Montreal is. Calgary looking to defend home field and hand Davis Alexander his second career regular season loss. Hey, maybe when he comes to Alberta this year, he's cursed. I think it's hard to bet against the Alouettes. They're just such a complete team in every single aspect. They play good defense, they're well coached, they're good on special teams, they're creative in their play calling. They have who I think is the best overall quarterback, or at least the best thrower of the football in the entire CFL in Davis Alexander. And the motion that they run on offense is just so creative. They almost run their offense like a college team. A lot of motion, a lot of guys being able to get in open space, a good offensive line. Montreal is a tough beat at any time. But Calgary is looking to get that win back. They were able to put a beat down on Toronto last time that they were in Calgary, and now hosting Montreal. I think this is a pivotal point for Calgary and their season. If they can put on a statement to the entire league and defeat the Alouettes, we're going to shake up the power rankings on this side, and they can really say, hey, Edmonton's playing well, Saskatchewan's playing well, but they haven't played us yet. so they can cement themselves as contenders in the West the same way that Edmonton can and the same way that BC can. In my opinion, this is a massive week for the CFL. We are finally going to start to see which one of these teams are really contenders and which one are pretenders. Obviously, it's a long, long season. Saskatchewan will be on a bye this week, so their place in the power rankings will most likely remain unchanged. But we're going to have to talk about that next week. Victory Monday, of course, will be beautiful. Winnipeg is going to take on the Red Blacks if we're moving down our power rankings and it's a game that we're looking at and thinking it's obvious. Winnipeg has been playing fairly well. They were able to look impressive with Drew Brown as their quarterback last week. He is most likely going to start another week at least for Winnipeg against the Red Blacks. It's a no-brainer. Allow Kolaros to get healthy. This is a game that should be winnable for Winnipeg no matter who's at quarterback, because at this point, the defense has been playing well all season, and Ottawa has not shown the ability to move the ball whatsoever. So if Ottawa can't move the ball, and Winnipeg has shown with Drew Brown that they can move the ball, he wants to get his revenge on the franchise that literally just traded him just a few short weeks ago. I think this is going to be a beatdown in Ottawa. Give me Winnipeg to win by 2 scores. And for Ottawa, maybe one day they'll move up that Victory Monday board, but I don't think it's going to happen for them this week. Hopefully they prove me wrong. If they prove me wrong, I give the Red Black social media full permission to clip me and make me look like a clown. Moving on, the the Argonauts will be taking on the Tiger Cats in a game that is really going to determine which one of these teams is able to be competitive for that number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. For Hamilton, they've had a couple weeks now without Bo Levi Mitchell in the practice room. You need to start to show something. What they showed last week was not great, but Toronto's defense is also not great. So if you're ever going to do it, this is the week where the Tiger Cats prove. You still have a ton of talent all over the field. There's wide receivers who are capable of making plays. You have a run game, which in previous weeks has looked pretty solid. And you have a defense, which in previous weeks, again, looked good. So against Toronto, against Chad Kelly and that Argonauts offense, it's going to be dangerous. And if the Argos are able to go ahead early, I don't have a lot of faith in the Hamilton offense to be able to keep up. However, if they can play good defense, defend their home field, they really do have a chance in this game. And these wins are going to be crucial for how the East tunes out, because if you start to have the tiebreaker between Toronto, between Hamilton, that's going to be the deciding factor on who makes the playoffs. For Toronto, they're heading in here, and it's the exact same story, obviously minus the injury concerns. You're fully healthy still with Chad Kelly and all of your starters. You need to go in here and make a statement that Hamilton cannot keep up with you on offense, because if you don't, a lot of questions are going to be raised, and maybe Nick Arbuckle does come in and take over, because there's a lot of talent on that Toronto offense, and I don't in any way think Chad Kelly's been the problem. I don't think the Toronto offense has been the issue. They just can't stop anybody. And so they have a really favorable matchup. They might be able to stop Hamilton and the offense, but it's going to directly affect our power rankings and where they sit going into the final week. And I think as far as what the season and how it shapes up at the end of the year, week 7 in the CFL, we're going to look back and say this was key. All right, that was our show today. Friday will be UFC Friday. We kind of talked about it on Monday. Not a lot going on in the world of UFC. The card doesn't have a lot of big names, but they'll be in Oklahoma City. Usman versus Dricus du Plessis for the King of Africa. Who takes home the crown? Obviously, you run this fight in Oklahoma City, right? 2 African kings, and you need to do it in front of the home crowd of Oklahoma City. A few other exciting matchups. You have Sugar Sean's training partner in Tommy Machine Gun McMillan, and then a couple other reasons to tune in. We're going to talk about it on Friday. We'll have all the results of the World Cup action, and we'll break down the first game still of the CFL slate in the Edmonton Elks and the BC Lions in a little bit more detail. Thank you as always for tuning in. Please, if you do not mind, hit that like button, hit the comments, hit subscribe. SamCentre out.
Yo, Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but I'm looking at the blueprints. Building a temple where the spirit leaves his footprints. Gibeon nights, the most high asked what I'm needing. Didn't ask for peas or for enemies to be bleeding. I asked for the wisdom, the hokmah, the insight to distinguish the dark from the frequency of light. See, I built the first house, see the wooden gold plate between Jeshurun and Boaz, standing at the gate. The pillars of the world, severity and mercy. The path is narrow, man, the road is getting thirsty, but the temple laid stone, that's the trick for the blind. The real masonry is the structure of the mind. Seal of the king, two triangles entwined. The lower reflecting the upper design. Master of the spirits, I made the demons work. Building up the temple where the shadows used to lurk. It's the wisdom of Solomon, the heavyweight crown. Building up the spirit while the system falling down.
Building up the spirit.
Yeah, they say I had the ring, the brass and the iron. Commanding the glacier, the wolf and the lion. See, the demons are just facets of the ego and the greed. I harness the shadows to plant the holy seed. You gotta kill the beast, you gotta make it move the blocks. Put the vices in the furnace, turning keys inside the lock. 72 spirits, yeah, I kept them in the vessel. Every conscious man has a demon he must wrestle. If you don't control the lower, then the lower controls you. That's how the temple falls and the spirit gets through. I saw the vanity, they're chasing all the wind, but the wisdom is the treasure underneath the skin. I sat with the queen, yeah, Sheba brought the riddle, trying to find a center, not the sides or the middles. She saw the cupbearer, the order of the table. Realize that history is more than just a fable, it's the key of Solomon, the magic in the math. Finding your geometry on the righteous path. From the quarry to the corner, I'm the stone they rejected. To the master workman, saw the spirit was perfected. Modern day Solomon, I'm building in the ends, turning all the haters and the demons into friends. The temple is complete when the heart is in tune. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the moon. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity unless you know the